All right, let's have a look at these cute toes. So, when we do a toe reading, the right foot represents the way that we're presenting to the outside world and our interaction with the outside world. And our left foot represents our internal self, the way that we relate and interact with ourself and with our thoughts, as well as our connection with Source. And so just keeping track of that, where they are, our big toes or our great toes are the right one is our life path, and the left one is our spirit path. The second toes are communication expression toes. The third toes are action toes. The fourth toes are relationship toes. And the fifth toes are the trust and prosperity toes. And so we're going to look at this and go by toe, starting with the big toe and then moving towards the small toes. So when we look at your toes, the one of the things that I really like is you've got a nice nail on each toe. The nails really are very representative in many ways of the health of each of those energetic aspects, whether it's our path toes, communication and expression, action, relationships, or prosperity and trust. So nice nails on each of the toes. And then we have these big toes. And so when we look at these big toes, there's just a couple of differences that I would like to point out here. So in your life path toe, you are grounded. Life path has to do with what we do here in the three-dimensional world, our careers, etc. And so if you just look at this toe, it's straight, it's nicely grounded. We've got a nice space here, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And just comparatively, so there's never any judgment, only awareness here. But just comparatively, if you look at this, your spirit path toe is a little less grounded. It leans a little bit more. And so the question that I would ask is how do you feel with your spirit path? How do you feel with your connection with Source? How do you feel about the universe guiding your life? So those are just some questions to ask. And then, what do we do about that then? So sometimes there can be some religious trauma, and this can look in a lot of different ways when we tie religion and spirituality together. So this is something that we'll talk about personally as well, but just looking at what's going on in your spirit path toe. Now both of the nails we can see are pointing towards the smaller toe. They're looking to the future, if you will. When the nails are turned towards the small toes, they're looking to the future. And so what is it about the present moment that isn't working for you? What is it about the present moment that you wish were different? And so asking yourself these questions, and maybe just you knew right away, there's something that's not in alignment. All the changes start in the nail and then they move back. So the closer to the foot, the farther back in time it is. There's also generational things. And so people talk a lot about the difference between generational and genetic, and there's both components. And looking at it through the toe reading lens, there are generational patterns that get passed down to us. They get carried on actually in our genes. These can be energetic life patterns. So sometimes some of the trauma that we're holding and that our toes are telling us the message about isn't even ours. So that's another thing to think about as you look at your toes and go through. So well done on your life path. You are in a good life path. What is not working for you? What are you less satisfied with now that you're looking to the future? Really getting more grounded in your spiritual relationship, in those spiritual connections, and also looking to the future here. So we'll explore that more when we speak together. Let's move to the communication and expression toes. So this is communication, vocal communication, so verbal communication, as well as nonverbal communication, as well as just expressing oneself, whether that's expressing oneself through artistic means or in our physiology. So just the way that we're expressing to ourselves and to the world. And so again, just as a point of reference, these two toes are different from each other. When we look at this toe, this nail is leaning into this big toe. And so I find this to be very interesting. It's looking to the past. And I get the feeling that these two toes are just looking at each other, actually trying to help each other out, because in your spirit path, how there's some not as much clarity there as you might desire, that might be ideal. Then this communication expression toe here is looking to that toe saying, hey, I don't really know how to express because of this thing. And this again is your self-expression as well as your self-talk. So really think about your self-talk. What do you say to yourself? What disappointments or feelings have you buried inside of you? Do you ever talk yourself out of things, like your body feels something, your intuition feels something, but you're super smart and your brain goes, well, you shouldn't feel that way, or well, any number of things, but you get the idea. Our brains can sometimes be our worst gaslighters. Our bodies and our intuition are telling us one thing, and our brains are trying to talk us out of it. So really paying attention to what is the dialogue going on in your brain. And there's also some blocked energy in this. So there's some things that you want to express, some things that are boiling up that you want to speak, that you want to express, but you've got some blocked energy in there. There's some fear there about expressing. Sometimes when we start to show up in a different way or expressing just a little differently, I call it changing the dance. You know, you've been in a dance with certain people in your life for a really long time, and then you start changing things up. It changes the dance and it makes people uncomfortable, and it can be uncomfortable for you. And so you're just asking yourself, if that analogy resonates with you, what's the dance that it's time for me to change that will help me with this toe? When we have our session, remind me to just tell you the story about my communication toe. It changed my life when I paid attention to what it was telling me, and I took direction from the toe. And literally within weeks, it started to shift and change. I would also recommend some manual massage of this toe. So just getting your toe between your thumb and your index finger and just gently rubbing it. And that is going to help release that energy, and can in fact even bring, as that energy is releasing, bring into our mind the blocked energy or actions or words that we can take or say that will bring us into alignment. Sometimes we want to know, or we need to know what it's about, and sometimes it's just stored there and we're just going to release it. So lean into that a little bit. When we look at this communication toe, so this is the way that you are communicating out in the world. So this toe, nice and straight, it is flexible, and you have this beautiful space here. So this beautiful space is what I call the queen's toe. It is a space of leadership. It means you can stand on your own, especially here in your life path, in your career. So I know that you're an entrepreneur. You can stand on your own. You can support yourself. This toe is willing to stand on its own and take a stand, even if it means that you're standing alone, or that you don't have very many followers, but it's something that you think is the right thing for you. So you really can take the stand, and you have this leadership toe. Now I want you to just imagine for a couple of minutes what it would look like on this left foot if this toe got a little more grounded, so it was just leaning a little bit more that way, and this toe lost that blocked energy and stopped turning to the big toe. you'd see that it would open up and be very, very similar. Now, we don't want too much space between the toes, because if there's too much space, that can actually indicate antisocial behavior, which is not something that is usually desirable. But this is a perfect amount of space. Again, the flexibility of this toe, the uprightness of the toe, the nice larger nail on it. So really nice here. So keep communicating. You are expressing out into the world in a really aligned and powerful way. And so another question to ask yourself is, how am I expressing out in the world that's different from how I'm expressing internally, or what my internal dialogue is? And that's going to help shed some light on that. These are your action toes. And so again, we see more blocked energy in the left side than in the right side. You are a person of your word. If you say you're going to do something, you do something. And you've got this little point here on the side pointing to the future, like you know where you're going. I would love to know where Mars is, the planet Mars, in your natal chart, because the planetary ruler of this toe is Mars. It's your fire toe. It is the toe of action. And so just you are a person of action. There is a little bit of blocked energy in here. So again, that little massaging technique might be really good for this toe. And then we look at this toe. So just again, never judgment, only awareness. But if you look at the difference, this toe on your right foot is much more flexible. And so when you say you're going to do something to somebody out there, you're going to do it because you are a person of action. And these two toes are very tight together. Now, I want you to just look, this second toe, if it was leaning, it would be leaning into the action. So I would just encourage you to make sure that you're not getting personal value or personal feelings of worth only from your ability to take action. You are inherently worthy whether you take action or not. I see that a lot with entrepreneurs because we're such doers, and we do, and then we start to value attach our worth to our ability to do and to produce. So just be aware of that. When we look at this toe on the left foot, this is one that if I was looking at any of your toes, this would be one of the toes that I would definitely say massage, massage, massage. Because we want more flexibility in this. So are there commitments that you don't keep to yourself? Clearly you keep them to others, but are there commitments that you don't keep to yourself? Or are there actions? Again, this toe, so if you look at the difference here, the communication toe is leading a little bit into the action toe here. On this side, the action toe is leaning into the communication toe. The communication toe is leaning into the spirit path toe. And the spirit path toe is here like, hey, I really I don't have this. I'm leaning into you. And so there's some confusion going on here in the left foot. So action, what actions are you not taking? What actions are you taking that are not aligned? What actions would bring you into greater alignment? What are some commitments that you're not keeping that have to do with yourself? These are questions to ask your action toe here. And that little massage is really going to make a big difference. On to the relationship toes. These are your relationships. And I know that this is the primary reason why you came for this toe reading. So let's really take a deep dive into these relationship toes. So let's start with the left side this time. So you can see that there's some blocked energy here, and that this toe is pointing downward and really leaning into that action toe. So again, this would come to where is your self-worth. Really explore this out. Do you tie a lot of your value to what you can produce and to the actions that you take? I'm also going to guess that your love language is acts of service. So really paying attention to this relationship with yourself. This is the way that you're talking to yourself, and it is tying up your worth in your ability to produce. What would life be like for you, and how would you feel about yourself if you couldn't produce, if you couldn't do? Just take a minute to think about that. Would it inherently change your worth? You know that it would not, but you don't feel that. So this toe is really, really calling for you to get grounded in your inherent worth that has nothing to do with the actions that you take or how much you do. And again, I think that you know this here, and let's tie this into the heart, bring it together so that you can feel it and know it. Then we're going to look here at this relationship toe, which this is your relationship with people on the outside world. So I'm going to guess you've got a decent amount of friends, you've got some allies, and you've also got some blocked energy in here, but just look at the difference in the toenails here. So your relationships with people outside of you are, you've got some solid relationships there. So identifying who your friends and allies are, and really working on those outside relationships is very, very good. You have you are a good friend. You are a good partner. That is what I can completely see in this right foot. You really value relationships, and you're good at relationships. So good at relationships that sometimes I think that you see other people with rose-colored glasses, even when it's time to take those off. I think that seeing with people with that optimism, that those rose-colored glasses is a very, very good thing. And sometimes it's just time to take those off, because what you see in their soul is not how they are being in in this three-dimensional world. So massaging these relationship toes is going to be a really, really good practice for you. So have confidence in yourself that you are a great partner and a great friend. And consider what these toes are telling you. In this video, I've thrown out a lot of questions. See what resonates, and maybe make up your own questions to ask these toes. What are the messages? Now let's look at these little toes. This was one of the things that I saw very first. There's a really big difference between these toes. So these are our trust and prosperity toes. And the left foot generally has to do with trust, and the right generally has to do with prosperity, although there's a lot of crossover with that. So let's talk about this left toe first. Some callousing on the outside, looking to the future, but a solid nail on there. And, you know, we have so much generational as well as just our own stuff that gets really tied up in trust. And so I don't see anything in this toe that I think is particularly alarming or negative. And I put that in air quotes, negative. What I do see is that by massaging that toe a little bit and opening up your heart a little bit, oops, I don't know what just happened here, but that is not what I wanted to happen. So let's go back here. There we go. There's the toes again. So this toe here, again, trust. You trust yourself. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful that you trust yourself. And then trust your allies, realizing that everybody, has the potential to betray trust, intentionally or unintentionally. And so trust is good. And let's look at this toe. This is a very interesting toe. And here's why. This is your earth toe. And this toe is not even touching the ground, or if it is, it's barely touching it on that little side. It does have a nail on it, although it looks like this nail has a little bit of deformity on it. So I'd like to talk more about that when we have our session. And then there is just a lot of blocked energy in this toe. This is our trust and prosperity toe. And so as an entrepreneur and earning your own money, I'd be really curious to talk to you about this, and even wondering if, because you see how it's kind of covering up your relationship toe. Is your relationship with prosperity something that's actually keeping you from some of the relationships that you want? For example, I'm just going to throw a few things out there. Okay. Do you feel like if you make more money than your man, that he will feel emasculated? Do you ever feel insecure about the money that you make? Do you, as in relation to relationships, in that context, or any context? But that's the one that specifically was coming to my mind. Where is the source of your money? Like if you were to close your eyes and just imagine, where does your attraction to money live in your body? And where is, if there was a ribbon or a golden thread from wherever it is in your body to the source of money? And it's interesting that money is what's coming into my mind. What my intuition is telling me, because it's prosperity. Prosperity shows up in a lot of different packages. It's a lot of different things, but money is coming up for me here. So really explore what that looks like with money and worthiness. How willing are you to stand apart and stand alone in your world as a woman who is an entrepreneur, and a woman who makes money, and a woman who wants to be in a relationship with a man? Just consider how those things all work out. I'm going to be really looking forward to talking about that in our session. This toe, of all of the toes on all of your feet, is the one I would recommend the most massage with. There's just a lot of blocked energy going on in there. And then even a gentle pushing of it down into the ground so that it can root into the ground, because this is our earth toe. This is our connection to the earth. So that is the toe reading that I have for you for now. I do look forward to talking to you more when we have our session. Thank you so much.